All right,
The blood
everybody.
is the life. The blood
Yeah,
is the life.
I
yes.
never drink wine, so I'm drinking beer instead.
Yeah, I have ginger ale and vodka this evening. So,
I just have root beer from Jack in the Box.
hey,
Coffee, stale and black as my soul.
uh,
nice. Hey, you can't go wrong with some black coffee. But welcome back to another weekly show of I call it a lot of things. This week I'll just call it the Reject Show. Like it's sometimes it's the weekly Reject Show, or sometimes it's like just welcome back to the show. But this week it'll be the Reject Show. But we do have a special guest, Rachel. Ma'am, how are you?
yes.
Hi.
Yes. And
Yeah. I was presenting this way, but I keep forgetting that the camera sometimes. Yeah.
hello, welcome, welcome. Yes. Uh, Brady Bunch thing here, but yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
It's like,
but
And that's the way we became the Brady Bunch.
exactly.
uh,
Well, we are back talking more scary movies for Spooktober, which sadly is almost up, man. Like that went by so fast.
yeah.
Uh,
We're
uh,
getting literary for this one.
we are
Yep.
um, literary, early '90s, extremely, dare I say, sexy films because of like I
Well,
we were
one of them
taking them out of
is.
context. If you just heard
Well,
the audio,
now there is a lot of unnecessary topless scenes in Frankenstein, and I kept thinking, like, was he doing like crunches in between trying to
Kenneth
reanimate a
Branagh was like,
life?
"I'm directing this.
Right.
I'm going to be topless. Damn it!"
Yeah.
But
Oh.
if you haven't guessed,
Go on.
if you haven't guessed already, we are watching. To our tens of listeners, we watched Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, which was what 94,
94, yes.
94. Yeah.
and we watched Bram Stoker's Dracula 92. Did I get that right?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. All right. I should have. You think I would know that coming on my own show? But anyway, uh, two early '90s monster classics, and Rachel agreed to come on and talk about them because they're two of your favorites. So,
Long time.
Yeah.
so which one should we kick off with first? Which
Dracula.
Yeah,
Let's-
there's
All
a
right,
lot.
let's
There's
do
a
it.
lot to talk about on Bram Stoker's. Well, first of all, Bram Stoker's Dracula was the hit. Like, um, like I wouldn't say nobody saw it coming, but there's a reason it is more well known to this day than Mary Shelley's Frankenstein.
Well, I think there's a combination of several factors for that. I think one is Francis Ford Coppola's beautiful direction and the scenic and production design and his use of using almost every practical effect he could use from the late 19th century to 20th century. And of course, Gary Oldman as Count Dracula is
Yeah,
absolutely amazing.
yeah,
yeah.
Actually,
Actually, I kind
he went out
oh
of his way. He went out of his way to use all of the traditional filming techniques, even the shadow box. I think the only thing that was CGI were the blue rings.
Hmm.
wow,
well,
and
keep in
that's
mind.
incredible.
Also, CGI was still kind of in its infancy. We didn't really see what it was capable of until Jurassic Park.
Right, but it's
Yeah, it
still
was just a year later.
Yeah,
all of those practical effects still hold up today though. Like they're still
Yeah.
so well done that and so smooth that they still hold up to really anything that's done today. I mean, it beats CGI.
Yeah.
well, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
and we're talking about Francis Ford Coppola's awesome direction. Would you say this is his last great movie?
It is his last great movie. I wouldn't say it's his last good movie because I do think The Rainmaker is a solid 90s lawyer thriller. But I think everyone thinks Francis Ford Coppola, oh, he made those four great movies in the 70s and then he just kind of existed and made all these flops. But I would say that Dracula would be a solid number 5 in that list of his films.
Oh yeah.
Okay, yeah, I do agree with that. And I forgot that he directed The Rainmaker because I was just all thinking about the fact that it was, adapted from John Grisham book, which was another, which was another huge thing in the 90s.
Yup. All these preteens reading John Grisham and Michael Crichton novels.
Hey, I was one of those preteens.
Me too.
I had my King and Crichton phase.
Oh, same here. Especially after Jurassic Park, like that.
Yeah, that's what kicked it off.
Yeah. But
So
okay, and but sometimes we forget to talk about it, but I'm gonna throw the score in there, which is
It's
Oh.
breathtaking.
Yes.
It's amazing.
there's a story. For years that score was hard to find, and it was a specialty order, especially in the early days of the internet. And you were looking at like between $80 and $100 for this CD.
oh
Wow.
wow.
And I looked for it for years. No joke. Every time I went to Hastings or one of the CD stores,
FYE.
FY, everywhere I went, I would be like, oh, I'm going to look for it while I'm here. I know I'm going to look into it. And I swear to you, it took me years because I was not going to pay that much for a CD. And this was like, Napster, LimeWire. I wasn't going to download it and risk catching whatever.
Before time.
Right. And one day, I kid you not, I was in Houston and I was walking through not a Barnes and Noble, but it's another book chain around the Houston area.
Books a Million?
Books a Million. Yeah, and I was flipping through and I was like, holy shit, I found it. And it was like $30. And I almost cried. I was like, this was like years on the hunt for this thing. And nowadays you could find it like
It's on YouTube.
Spotify.
Yeah, they've reproduced it.
On Spotify, you're good.
And I'm just like, but back then it took me so long to find that score. But I found it. And it was
kind of shaking as you walk up to the cashier to buy it because you've been looking for it for so long.
Well, you probably don't want to know how much it costs, but Mondo has a vinyl print of this score.
Oh, I do want it on vinyl, but coming from Mondo, I can only imagine.
The artwork's great. It's $51.99 right now on Amazon for the record.
That is a steep
for my cave too. So
that's a steep price for a format that is only used kind of by hipsters now.
Right.
But
a lot of people collect vinyl, though. It's not just something hipsters do.
Yeah, I've collected vinyl, I'd say, since my tweens. Like, my parents gave me their vinyl that they had kept, and flea markets and garage sales. I've dabbled over the years, so.
It's really the only physical media of music that's being bought now.
Really?
Okay, y'all have a point. I say vinyl has been making a comeback. It just, I grew up right around the time when they were transitioning from records to tape cassettes, and then from tape cassettes to CDs.
Yeah, I remember.
Really rapid there, just bam, bam, bam.
The very last cassette tapes I bought from a Walmart, and it was in Jacksonville, were the Lethal Weapon 3 soundtrack, Star Trek: The Undiscovered Country soundtrack, and there was some other soundtrack that I found like in the cassette tape, and they were like $3.99 because everything else were going strictly to CD. Yeah, they're going to get rid of it, and CDs were still $30-$40 a pop.
Yeah. So, and y'all mentioned Gary Oldman, and this kind of reminds me of this old meme that was going on. Gary Oldman and how no one can really tell what he looks like.
Because he is a chameleon of an actor, right? He
He does.
transforms into the role.
Yeah.
But remember that this is practically an all-star cast. We have Anthony Hopkins, Keanu Reeves, Winona Ryder, Tom Waits.
Oh, Tom Waits rules in this movie.
Yes, Richard Grant, Carrie Elwes, and Monica Bellucci. Just
Oh, and the Rocketeers
everywhere.
in this movie. Billy Campbell.
Yeah.
Who I think got pushed. Oh, sorry guys. I think he got Brandon Fraser like early on. I really do. Like Billy Campbell should have been a lot bigger than what he was because he had some decent roles, but
Mhm.
I mean he had the Rocketeer. He had was it Quincy?
Mm-hmm.
Quincy?
Yeah.
You know, after that it was kind of like, what else did he do? I think he played the ex-husband of
He
Mariah.
mostly did TV stuff. He was on some TV show from like the creators of 30 something, but I guess it was like basically 40 something.
Yeah.
But I forget what it was called. It didn't last long, but he mostly I think did supporting roles in like TV stuff.
Okay.
Actually, I think they rebooted The Rocketeer on Disney Junior, and they got him to voice not the Cliff Secord from the movie, but like his son or something. Who's like the grandfather of the current Rocketeer, who's a girl.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Helena Bonham Carter.
Oh,
Well, that's in Frankenstein.
That's Frankenstein. Yeah.
Frankenstein.
We're going back to Frank. I'm sorry. I was trying to segue back to Frankenstein. Sorry, guys.
Oh,
But
interesting thing. Well, actually, Rachel, what do you like about this particular version of Dracula? Because there's been like a bajillion versions of them, and so many iconic actors have taken their stab at this character.
So there's so much in this that I like to pick apart, and really it's one of those movies that no matter how many times I go back, I always find some new little thing about it. Last time I watched it, I had this really crazy thought, and I'll bounce it off of you guys. It's kind of a hot take. It was actually about Mina.
okay. All right. I'm listening.
Right. So who was it that kicked off Dracula's original damnation in the movie? Elizabeth, right? Right.
Well, that's what's suggested when she commits suicide. Like he forsakes God and damns himself, right?
Yeah, right. And then what drives him through millennia? Elizabeth. And what actually ultimately drives him to London? He's actually going to London to look for her because he has a feeling that she's there. And then he sees the picture of John Harker's wife, Mina, and that's another thing that drives the plot along. And then later, she's possibly the only person smart enough to talk on the same level as Dr. Van Helsing. And again, this is a close-up adaptation to the book. In the book, she's one of the smartest people. And
I believe it.
It's all going back towards Mina, and then when she finally comes together with Dracula, it's about her fall from grace, her ultimate seduction. And we were talking about how much sex is in this. That's because back then, sex was part of the horror.
Right. I'm glad you mentioned that, Rachel, because I came into not quite fresh. I came into this movie not quite fresh, but this was one of those things that was reran on HBO all the time back in the day, and I was like, I was 13 and horny, so you knew I tuned in for that shit.
We all have stories.
Yeah.
The early days.
I kind of thought, because I rewatched it, and yeah, this movie is way better than I remember, and it's not quite as sexy as I remember. I mean, there is a lot of sexual content, but it's not quite as hardcore as
I
mine.
think you look at
It
it
was the boobs.
as you get older.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Some of that takes on.
Manipulating breasts are beautiful in this film.
yeah, and kind of watching this, and I'm realizing that it is probably the most accurate adaptation of Bram Stoker's book, um, probably
We-
to date. Um,
We watched a YouTube video, and forgive me because I cannot remember it right now, but this guy took um, all of the main. Now, it's not every Dracula film, but all of the ones that were like bigger box office hits going back to Nosferatu.
yeah,
Which is 100 years old, so that's how long we've been telling the story of Dracula on cinema.
Exactly. But he broke
Yeah.
it down like from the characters to the situations to Dracula himself, and the top two that came closest to the actual novel were it was the 70, was it the 73?
It's the Frank Langella version. Yeah,
It
that
was
one's
Frank
very
Langella
close to the
version.
stage production, actually, too.
and Bram Stoker's Dracula. So those were in the top two closest versions to the novel. So props to Nicola for that.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
speaking of the novel, has any of you tried doing Dracula Daily?
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay. Yeah. Cody has this looks like what is he talking about? What? Okay.
Weird.
Dracula Daily. It was this. It was this internet project because for those of you who don't know, Dracula is actually told through a series of letters.
Mm-hmm.
Which
So-
I like that they do a little bit of
Actually,
that in the movie.
Yeah.
And what Dracula Daily is you sign up, you put yourself on this email list, and you are actually sent those letters in real time.
That's really awesome.
Yeah.
And actually, the Dracula Bram Stoker's book is kind of a historical icon in general because it's the first found footage story where it could have been Mina just reassembling the documents of what had happened afterwards into a book.
Yeah.
Oh, I never thought about it like that, but yeah, that's
It's found footage.
yeah.
It is. Yeah. That's I love it. That's great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right?
The proper term for it is epistolary novels. Like it's made up of letters, telegrams, diaries, newspaper clippings, and the whole story happens between May 3rd and November 10th.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you're ever interested in something like that, yeah, you can actually sign up for this email list and read the book as in the length of time that it would be happening. I'll put a post to it on the Facebook page.
Yeah. Please do. I'd like to check that out. That's pretty awesome.
And also, we were talking about All-Star Cast and how Winona Ryder, around that time, she was one of the biggest movie stars around. And she's knocked a whole lot of roles out of the park, but we haven't heard from her a while until Stranger Things.
I think.
Yeah, Stranger Things pretty much reignited her career.
She actually approached Coppola to make this movie because she was supposed to be in The Godfather 3, as Michael Corleone's daughter, but had to drop out of the movie because she got sick. And so
okay.
she kind of
would have
approached Coppola to get
I
this
think she
made.
would have been a saving grace for Godfather 3. Like, that is one of the weakest parts in that movie. Is no offense to Sofia Coppola, but she's a better director than she is an actor, and I'm glad that she went that way because, I mean, and props to her and her dad for putting her in the movie, and
Yeah.
Yeah.
you know, but
That's
man,
just-
it would have been. I would actually love to have seen that.
Oh,
So
nice.
you were showing off your Dracula book. I have a copy with illustrations by Edward Gorey.
Oh,
Oh,
nice.
cute.
Yeah.
Mine's illustrated too, but it's got like screenshots from the movie.
Is that the Bela Lugosi one?
I think so.
Yeah. And
But you know, oh, go ahead, Nick.
Oh, I was also gonna talk about like another part of the whole All Star cast. You know, way back in the day, people loved to dunk on Keanu Reeves for his like being a non-actor, but now he's just this national treasure beloved by
I
all.
know.
Because he
just-
loves dogs. And
No, not
because
only-
he's a good guy. Did you guys see the thing I shared about Coppola's thoughts of working with him?
Yes, I
Yeah.
read that earlier today while I was work. But yeah, I guess it is very much helped by the fact that Keanu Reeves is a very nice person in real life.
Mhm. It does help that, and I think he handled his career with some real dignity and sense. And
Yeah.
Well, he was very popular at this point, and he was considered an up and coming actor. He was considered very sexy and handsome. And Coppola mentioned he's like, it's not that Jonathan is not that really interesting of a part. So I wanted to cast like a matinee idol in this role to try and draw people to come in. Like they approached Christian Slater, which would have been a Heathers reunion, but he turned it down.
Yeah.
Oh
And-
man. And
I mean, it would
Winona
have been
and Christian Slater already had that really great chemistry. That was
Yeah.
Yeah, the chemistry would have been great, but I mean, we would have been criticizing maybe Christian Slater wouldn't have tried a British accent, but they weren't sure what Keanu worked with, and he's found what works for him as an actor, and that's pretty much playing either the lovable Ted or in action movies.
Yeah. I was going to say either The Matrix or John Wick.
Yeah. In the book, actually, John Harper isn't that stupid, and it's a lot more subtle what Dracula is doing. It's not really up until the point that he locks him in that room with his brides that it comes out in the book, like, oh, surprise,
Yeah.
I mean, I think if anybody saw you licking blood off of a straight razor, they'd be like, I have to go.
I would have been out soon as that weird demonic carriage showed up. I'd have been like, I'm going to walk back to the village. I'm good.
Even if he had made it that far, like the part where he draws the sword on him at the dinner table, I'd been like, all right, dude, look, I've overstayed my welcome. I get it. Look, this isn't going
Thanks
to
for
work.
the whole chicken.
I would have been out of there the second I saw that cinnamon roll hairdo.
Hey, you know what? People make fun of that hairdo, but as a person who has long hair and is probably going to have even longer hair over the years, it's pretty cool. I get it. He has so much of it. You got to put it somewhere, and it looked
like he was wearing a face hugger as a hat.
Oh God!
But it wouldn't have worked on anyone else but as Dracula. Like it works. Like if you look at the back of it and how it's braided, how long it is, like you get it, and it makes him look even more wicked, if it makes sense. Like
it does. It's like very like if some random person just came out in all red, it just
They're almost,
looked.
they're not horns. It's hair,
Yeah.
but it's maybe it's
Okay,
symbolic. I don't know.
devilish.
Maybe I'm
Yeah.
reading too much into it,
Well-
and I'm just like gnarly hair, dude. But
No, it's actually I don't think it really gets pointed to in the film, but once you know this, you realize something, that Dracula's power only comes out at night. He can only
Yes.
look
Yes.
like the princely Dracula at night. So every other time you see him during the day, he looks like that monster. When they find him with Mina on the bed, that's at sunset,
Hmm.
Interesting.
right?
Actually, I do. That was one thing that I noticed that they did this. Of course, this was like Vampire 1.0, so they didn't do the whole sunlight kills them or lights them on fire thing. So
Mhm.
I think that would be a very interesting plot point to play with, where sunlight doesn't kill them; it just depowers them a lot.
Actually, if you read any of Jim Butcher's work, he covers vampires, and so does Anita Blake.
Okay, yeah. Jim Butcher has been on my list for the longest time. There's so many other stuff that I'm
he
reading through right
does.
now.
He does.
Yeah.
The Dresden Files.
Dresden
The
Files.
Dresden Files.
That was
He-
a popular comic at our shop. A lot of people came in for that one.
Because
got
the
into
books, because of the books. The books are fantastic, and what he does is he sits down with vampires and he's like, well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through literary history and take out all of the examples, and then those are different vampires. Like, you have vampires of the Black Court, which are like Bram Stokers, where when they're bit, they die and then they're dead. They're more like walking corpses. And then you have vampires of the White Court, which are seductive vampires, and they're the ones that glitter.
Oh,
Okay.
And they feed off of like personal energy, and then you have vampires of the Black Court,
hmm.
They're the
and then
No,
there's like Red Court vampires that look like bats, and then there's vampires of the Lotus Court, which nobody knows about right now.
which actually, I'm glad you talked about the whole, sexy vampire kind of thing, because from, reading about Dracula, I think it was originally thought of as a allegory. Dracula was thought of as an allegory for them exotic foreigners coming to take our women's.
Oh,
Well,
no.
I mean, the love.
xenophobia.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I actually that was what. Oh, sorry, Rachel.
uh, 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 um,
I think
so,
we all backtracked each other somewhat.
Yeah.
So actually, talking about the sexy vampire thing, back in those days, the sex was part of the horror. So yeah, there was definitely subplots there of a seduction.
Yeah, which
It
makes
was
me
part of the horror.
actually that also makes me wonder if Lucy is the trope codifier for the slutty girl who gets killed.
Well,
Yes.
actually, in the book, she's the ingenue,
Right.
Yeah.
but in the movie, she's kind of treated that way. Yeah.
Well, that's because they create the love story that's not in the book, right? There's not this love story between Dracula and Mina really in the novel.
Yeah.
I'd beg to differ on that, because she's still one of the main driving parts of it. I mean,
Right, but I mean, there's
that's
not this
fine.
connection to them that they add into the movie.
Yeah, because I was thinking it was like also the whole vampire forbidden romance. Does that also mean that is older than we think?
Yeah.
No. That's a recent thing, and that
Yeah.
actually started just before this rendition, it had a different leading man. What was his name? Where it was a VILF. It was the Dracula before this one.
Oh,
Christopher Lee.
because Christopher
No.
Lee played Dracula 6 times. There was the
Yes.
Franklin Jella and Jack Palance version.
Raul Julia even played Dracula on stage.
Raul Julia, that's who it was.
Oh, well, that's why.
Of
It's Raul
course it's-
Julia. What are you gonna do?
Yes.
The day Dracula seduced you was the most important day for your life, but for me, it was Tuesday.
But another thing that I noticed in this movie, and I'm gonna kind of go on a sidebar here because there's a new adaptation of Interview with the Vampire that's a TV series, right? And I was
Yeah.
hearing some older people I know, one of them being my brother, complaining about how they've made it more woke or whatever. And one guy was like, "Oh,
They're bisexual vampires.
I was out when Louis and
They did.
Lestat were going at it," and I'm like, I wanted to be like, "Have you not read these Anne Rice books?" And also,
Right.
I'm like,
First of all,
Right.
Anne Rice.
those vampires were sleeping with each other, and that's another thing
All
about
over the place.
what I notice almost in every interpretation of vampires is that they're androgynous. They don't care if you're a man or you're a woman. They're down to
They're
Um,
clown.
straight up Captain Jack.
Okay. Yeah, I was gonna say, Anne Rice wrote the adaptation of the original movie, and even though it wasn't as probably explicit in the book as it was in her book, that sexual tension was definitely still there.
Yeah.
And it was
And
supposed
even
to be
in
there.
And even in this movie, when like the brides are all doing their thing with Jonathan,
Oh,
Dracula
yes.
comes in and is like, "No, he's mine."
Yeah.
And also you're talking about vampires being down to clown. One thing that I thought of was True Blood.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the last episodes that I watched, I kind of lost track of the series by then, is when Bill got another girlfriend, and then then he looked further down his family tree, and she realized that he was boating his great-great-great-granddaughter.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
complex.
Ooh.
Ugh,
Side effects of living hundreds of years, I guess.
yeah.
Very much so.
Maharet's family tree. Cheers.
It's keeping the bloodline pure.
That's why I could,
We do not branch, we only trunk.
It's a Targaryen thing, huh?
No joke. You better check. I could not date in my hometown because we're related to everyone down the line. And
Yeah,
I was like, nope, I couldn't do it. Couldn't date anyone in town because I knew it's somewhere down the line. Cousin, second cousin, third cousin, fourth cousin. I don't care.
Yeah,
Every
that sounds.
hometown has that story of two people who didn't wait and didn't do ancestry, and it turns out they're cousins.
Oh, I know of one
It's a small town.
one
in Central
couple
Thread.
that they're still married and have a bunch of kids, but they were like first cousins.
Well,
Yeah,
Ooh.
I actually there was
getting
I knew-
off
Yeah,
anyway,
getting off incest talk. Anthony Hopkins.
This isn't Game of Thrones, guys. Let's go back.
yeah.
Let's go back.
Anthony Hopkins
Let's
is
be
really good
honest.
as Van Helsing. I mean, yeah, shocker. Anthony Hopkins is really good in a movie.
Yeah.
But,
He classes up anything he's in. Like,
but this is post Oscar win Anthony Hopkins too.
yeah,
Absolutely. And, this is another part where, the adaptation doesn't really discuss how the Doctor was in the book. The Doctor was like this silly guy with a weird way of talking that he'd get idioms wrong, and then just suddenly mention vampires and it'd be serious things.
Ugh.
And
That's
then in the movie, he's just this nutty professor that comes into his own and they start talking about maybe it's a vampire. You know?
Yeah. Actually, the vibe I got from Hopkins Van Helsing in the movie is that he's kind of a dick.
Yeah, a little bit.
He is, but that's what I was talking about. Like in the book, that's more of a verbal tick, and he doesn't really get the way words are supposed to go, and that makes him kind of crazy. But in the adaptation, uh, that's what it's supposed to be. Is he's just foreign, and it makes him more into a dick.
Yeah, I see where you're going with this. And oh, Chris, any thoughts on Mr. Anthony Hopkins?
I mean, y'all just described everything that I'm thinking. I mean, I love him. He's great.
I mean, I like how he's just like, yeah, we just drove a
What-
stake through her heart and chopped her head off.
Yeah.
Anthony Hopkins has done a lot of things over the years, but personally, when someone says Anthony Hopkins, I go to two performances, and that's Van Helsing and that's Hannibal Lecter. In my
Okay,
mind.
Hannibal Lecter is good, but actually, kind of making a little bridge between our movies is playing Odin in the first Thor movie, which was directed by Kenneth Branagh.
Yeah.
Right.
Before we move to Frankenstein, I want to just say that I think Richard E. Grant and Carrie Elways both give great performances as their titled
Absolutely.
characters.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
everyone was on their game in this movie, and it
Yes.
shows, which is
Everybody.
why which is why one of the it's one of the reasons why this movie has endured for so long.
Now,
It's getting a big theatrical re-release this week of its 30th anniversary too.
Yeah.
I would give, excuse the expression, I would give my left testicle if I could go see that on the big screen. But unfortunately, I probably can't unless it's showing around here. Cracker.
I think
Yeah.
it's on in Lufkin tomorrow night. I could be wrong.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah, that's
Mm.
too soon.
I live in DFW, so there's probably at least one theater showing it this weekend.
I would love to see it on the big screen. Man.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
wonder
but
if it's-
go ahead.
I wonder if it's showing at Galveston.
Probably a Cinemark. I think it's a Fathom event. So
Oh yeah.
Let
Yeah,
me
lots of Cinemark theaters around here.
But-
no, it's not.
no.
Dang.
Yeah, we have it. We're surprisingly like London here, but everything's spread way out across like 5 different principalities. We've got like 5. We have the island, and then we have the mainland, and the theater is on the island, and it's big, but and it gets the job done, but like it is not always like the most recent films. We have to wait a minute.
Reminds me of the theaters in Marshall. Like,
Yeah.
we didn't get Independence Day until late August, early September.
Suicide
Dang.
Squad didn't come to us until like July.
The newer
Ugh.
one or the 2016 one?
The 2016.
It was worth the wait.
Yeah.
I
But,
enjoyed that.
Have you seen the James Gunn one?
Mm-mm. Not yet.
Yeah, I recommend the James Gunn version. It's a lot of fun.
I can't wait.
Before we go into our next movie, this is pretty much one of the next movies on my watch list.
Oh, that's hilarious. It's great.
Yes.
Yeah, you
It
gotta
is.
watch
Yeah.
it.
That's a favorite.
Ron
Yeah.
stuff.
Highly
Ron
recommend.
It started out as an indie film, and it's just really blown up.
And
Well, it's a
it also
TV
put
show now.
Taika Waititi. That put Taika Waititi on the map.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
that
the
certainly
TV
helped.
show.
But yeah,
Yes. I love some good old monstrous face munching monster vampires. And Tika Waititi does so good with it.
actually, it's kind of funny. My mom, she was legitimately scared of vampires. Like, well, I think she watched the old school Dracula movies
Uh-huh.
when she was really young, and they probably played it in the theater like late at night. But me growing up, vampires are like my favorite movie monsters.
Mhm. Oh yeah.
I mean, they got to be the most prolific of all the movie monsters because there's been so many different versions, not just of Dracula, just of vampires in general. But I think this might be my favorite Dracula movie of all the Dracula movies I've seen. I haven't seen all the Christopher Lee ones. I've seen the horror of Dracula.
It is definitely one of my favorite vampire themed movies.
It's definitely every one of them. It's like asking a librarian to choose their favorite book. You know, every generation has its vampire, right? Our vampire is like this, but it also has this, and this is why we get such variety in the lore, is because every generation remakes its vampire in its own existential dread,
Yeah.
which is delicious.
Also, actually, I like my. Oh, sorry, Chris.
No, this was my first introduction to vampires. So,
Oh,
well, okay, not my first introduction, but my first. Well, maybe it was my first introduction. Like before that, it was the kid friendly Dracula, the black and white Dracula. I kind of knew what it was, but this, I had three older sisters, and they always rented a lot of horror movies, and this is the one that they rented where I actually got to sit in and kind of watch. And this was my first introduction to a really scary version of Dracula to me. So because I was so young, so it holds a nostalgic place, and it is my favorite. Like out of all the iterations that have come out, I have to go with this one every time.
Actually, I've been trying to think about it when my first introduction to vampires was, and well, the one I definitely remember was like the kid friendly Hello Kitty version of Dracula. Yeah, yeah, but
well, you
uh,
say that. I'm pretty sure the first time I saw Dracula was an episode of Beetlejuice cartoon.
but
I think they did a version of
Oh,
it.
thinking Dracula is Dracula. I think my next exposure was probably the Monster Squad.
Hmm.
I think my first vampire ever was Barnabas Collins, and it was kind of
Ah,
there
Dark
right
Oh,
there with
Shadows.
Joss Whedon's Dracula.
Yeah.
It's
Oh,
right
he did.
there in that same.
That's right. He
What
did
was
show up in an episode of Buffy, didn't he, Dracula?
yeah.
Yes, and I really enjoyed that Dracula. Did you know that same actor got his chance to act out Dracula in a full movie in another Dracula film later?
I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh wow.
Hmm. What are some of your current favorite vampire themed movies?
Well, What We Do in the Shadows, obviously.
Hmm.
Uh, I've yet to get around to the most recent interview with a vampire. Um,
I haven't watched it yet either.
uh, there's actually a YouTube channel that I really follow for all of my vampire fixes, and that's called Vampire Reviews.
Hmm.
Uh, and it's this lady up in New York, and she just, it's multimedia. It's Broadway, it's books, as well as it's cinema. And she talks about, different vampires. And right now she's going on about the AMC special,
Oh.
which I'm avoiding for spoilers' sake because I want to sit down and watch it. So what we do in the shadows, as well as the rock opera Tanz der Vampire in German, not the English translation. But as far as like after that, it would have to be Dracula, the Bram Stokers adaptation. You really can't go wrong. And in terms of guilty pleasure, this is just in the last 5 years. I don't know why, but Twilight.
Hey,
you know what? More Okay, Rachel, you probably don't know this. I work at a school, and I deal with middle school girls and high school girls, and I see so many of them read Twilight, and I don't dunk on them for that, but I say to them, please don't base your expectations of romantic relationships on this movie. There are so many red flags.
Right, and this would actually get me started on a long rant about conditioning young women with cinema and books to accept certain behaviors, and a much older boyfriend who tries to control every part of her life, and the joke goes, it's a woman's choice between necrophilia and bestiality, right?
Let's.
I used to be the person dunking on this movie because of some of the most wildly obscene shit that goes on in it. But also, she's kind of choosing between emotional abuse versus physical abuse. The emotional abuse comes in Edward's family, and it's a narcissistic, we're going to put on this facade for people, as well as with Jacob's family, where they talk about physical violence against their partners as an oops, he. Then this is what happens if you don't stay out of our way.
Yeah.
Just really, you don't want to base your relationship. This is one of those things where if you see your friend completely romanticizing this story, you want to sit down with them and make sure they're okay.
Yeah, that's why I actually started doing this with my students, because a lot of my students are 13, 14, 15 years old, and still figuring themselves out.
It's the same thing as if you see someone romanticizing the Harley Joker
relationship.
Yes.
Yeah, that's not a relationship you want to model yourself after.
Well, first of all, Joker is not a person you should be idolizing at all.
Sorry,
exactly.
I'm more of an Aragorn Arwen person myself, but
well, there you go.
Call me old fashioned, but that's just kind of a disgusting meme to be passing around, and I do see it a lot.
Because Arwen's so much older.
Well, personally, for me, as far as other vampire media goes, I am more of a fan of the vampires as metaphor. So some of my favorite movies are Vampires versus the Bronx. It's like vampire gentrification, or True Blood. Vampires as a marginalized group, and actually Daybreakers, just because it's so much fun.
That's a fun movie, and you got Willem Dafoe as a vampire hunter. What more do you want?
Willem Dafoe as a vampire who drives his car, crashes into a tree, crashes through the windshield, and lights on fire like he's freaking Wile E. Coyote, and he just missed the Roadrunner.
Yes,
Okay.
I forgot all about that film.
Okay, so true story. I'll let you finish, Cody. It's like I'm gonna let you finish, but I saw this in the theater, and during that scene when they were testing like the blood, it's like the blood substitute on this one vampire, and he just says "ow" and explodes. I laughed so hard for 5 minutes straight in the theater.
I was going to highlight
Yeah,
the
I mean
two
it's
vampire movies I really dig that I think if you want to check them out is Catherine Bigelow's Near Dark, which is basically a good version of a Rob Zombie movie.
I was gonna
oh,
I was gonna say Near Dark. That's a favorite. And
ooh, emotional damage.
well,
And
we
then
all
we
of Rob
covered it
Zombie's
last year, and it
movies.
made me a fan. And I agree with you. It is a better version of a Rob Zombie movie. Although I am a sucker for Rob Zombie. I went to the Wild Horses tour concert, and it was wild. But anyway,
Rob Zombie knows
Yeah.
aesthetics.
yes,
Yes.
I
am a huge
just
Rob Zombie fan.
yeah.
I like his music, but his movies I just can't vibe with. They just make me feel icky,
They're,
and I
they're,
feel
they're,
like
listen,
That's
listen.
the
They're a
there's
trailer
too
park
much
house
like the
fire,
profanity
but
and
we
the
still
random
watch
rape
anyway.
scenes.
Okay.
It's
I
little,
really
but,
enjoyed Lords of Salem.
Mm.
that one I haven't seen. Like I haven't watched
it's a
anything
witch
since Halloween
movie.
2.
Yeah, that was a little odd, but I mean, I'm like, I liked Devil's Rejects. You know,
House of
as
a
a-
Yeah,
Thousand
that one's
Corpses
fine.
and
awesome. So
what was the last one in the trilogy? 'Cause it's a trilogy.
From
There's
is
House
it
of a
Three
Thousand
from
Corpses,
Hell?
Devil's
Three
Rejects,
from Hell.
and then
Yeah, I haven't
Three
seen
from
that one. That one I was slightly like I might give that one a shot.
and it's all about these people that come out of the deep country, forest people, and after a while, you just start rooting for them.
But
In the first
the other
movie,
one, no.
you are horrified, and then by the third movie, you're like, kill him!
Oh Lord.
Oh wow.
But the other one I wanted to highlight, there's two versions of this movie. They're both good, and now they just did a recent TV adaptation, and that's Let the Right One In. It's a Swedish film,
Oh,
and then
yeah.
they
I know what
then they
you're talking about. I've wanted to see it, but it's like I haven't yet for whatever reason. But yeah, I want to see both versions.
yeah,
the
that's
remake's good too, but yeah, the original's phenomenal.
I've
That's been on my
seen both.
list. We should watch that.
Yeah.
And what I've seen of the TV show's not bad either, which is going a little bit more in the direction of the Swedish film than the American version. But they're both good.
They are, and it's another one of those things where the sex is part of the horror because she's this little girl,
Mhm.
and you don't really understand the relationship she has with the older men until the very end of the story.
Actually, it's kind of funny you mentioned that because that got me thinking of Interview with the Vampire and the character of Claudia and
Mhm.
how she
Mhm.
was essentially a stand-in for Anne Rice's daughter who died of leukemia.
Yeah, well, I mean, she baseless that off her husband.
Yeah,
Good writers draw from life.
they do that. Just uh,
All right, are
it's
we ready
understandable.
to slip and fall in amniotic fluid and talk
Okay.
Frankenstein?
Oh yeah,
Oh, let's cover.
All right. Let's just
I
get this
almost
out.
laughed out loud in that scene though, because I had
Let's-
forgotten that.
Okay. Listen,
Let's get this out of the way right now.
I'm gonna do a quick. Listen. As far as gross and kind of the gross factor, the horror factor, the over the top acting, the I don't know the whole story in general, the craziness of of De Niro playing the monster, it's just such a crazy concept that, again, it works for this time period. Like today, I don't think it would work as much, but I really enjoyed it, and I think it's underrated.
Okay, I say this, but I actually watched Frankenstein for the first time this past weekend, and
Mhm.
it actually totally works for me. Like the whole
It's a solid movie.
yeah,
It
Kenneth
aged
Branagh,
really well.
yeah, Kenneth Branagh knows how to make a movie. I will give him that. But I didn't quite realize until a few recently that when Kenneth Branagh was playing Gilderoy Lockhart, he wasn't really acting.
No,
No.
Yeah,
as evidenced by how many scenes Victor Frankenstein walks around shirtless. Like he puts
Yeah, I
on a
pointed
robe,
that out
takes
earlier.
it right back off, and stand around in profile and
Oh yeah. He wanted to make himself look good.
The
Well,
24 pack.
him and Helena
Yeah.
Bonham Carter started an affair while they were making this movie, so maybe that was part of it too.
Oh yeah,
Which
all the
is
horniness.
okay. Well, I didn't realize that Helena Bonham Carter was her career was that long because I first heard about her in Fight Club.
Oh, she was acting in
Oh,
like Merchant Ivory stuff in her teens. Like I think she's in a
yeah,
room with the view and she's like 19 or 20.
Oh wow.
yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
she's one of the original scream queens, in my opinion.
But
British screen.
though, we were talking about incest earlier, and the whole
well,
thing with
Speaking of
Victor, yeah, with Victor and God, what
Elizabeth.
Elizabeth, and talking about it's like, oh, I think it was like paraphrasing Song of Solomon, that line, "My sister and bride,"
Well,
No,
she's not his
actually,
blood
she's
sister
not.
though.
Yeah,
but
it
but
is.
the fact, but the fact that But the
It
fact
is
that he has
icky.
the fact that Victor has no problem with it is a clue towards his propensity towards the unnatural.
Yeah.
good point.
Well, I guess you could say it like that, but I think the way I saw it was she was adopted at, as a child, and they grew up together. And I'm thinking about it in those back then times when you didn't meet very many people outside of your family,
And
so you had
okay,
what you were available. You had available.
And I
oh
think
god,
I don't know if it says this in the book, but I think it's suggested that his dad adopted her as a potential mate for Victor when they grew up.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. I
Actually, I
think.
did see. I remember one of my friends. I don't know if you remember Chris Amanda. Like she's an English teacher now, and she has a
That's right.
manga. She has a manga adaptation of Frankenstein that was drawn by, oh god, I'm gonna butcher his name, Junji Ito. The this is my whole guy. Like the it's like this is my whole. It was made for me. That story.
I
You have no idea what I'm talking about.
I vaguely kind of remember that, but
Okay,
I'm not 100.
but the guy who adapted it is a very prolific horror manga artist and writer. So to have him adapt Frankenstein, was a pretty, he does a really good job of it, and that's actually how I first heard the original story. Because everybody know, I think it. This is another one of those monsters that has entered the popular lexicon through cultural osmosis. Patchwork
Well,
Man gets like brought to life by lightning and everything.
Mhm. I think what
I
sets
mean,
Frankenstein apart
Yeah.
is his uniqueness. I mean, you have Legion of vampires, Legion of zombies, Legion of mummies, and Legion of werewolves, but only one Frankenstein's monster. Adam.
Oh, actually, a funny thing. Apparently Kenneth Branagh, he did not want anyone to use the word monster on set. Like he wouldn't
That's
let anybody call the monster the creature or the monster. I can't remember what he had them refer to it as, but like
Yeah,
Mr. De
I
Niro.
remember. I remember that because Joe Bob Briggs brought this up because he showed this on Monster Vision one time back in the late '90s.
Oh,
But
I love Joe Bob.
we were
The whole
talking
Trinity of horror. The father.
we were talking about this before we started recording about Chris. You saying these films feel connected, not just because they're both from classic literary horror novels of the 19th century, but Francis Ford Coppola produced this movie planning to direct it after Dracula, but Kenneth Branagh came in and was so passionate about doing it himself, and he said, "You direct it." And at this time, Branagh's off of Henry V and Much Ado About Nothing, so he's like the go-to Shakespeare guy.
Mhm.
yeah.
I think he still is the go-to Shakespeare guy, though he hasn't done a Shakespeare movie in a long time. I guess he's the Agatha Christie guy now because he's gonna do another Poirier movie.
Oh, yeah. I. Mm, yeah. It's like everyone knew there's only one Frankenstein's monster. It was funny that I never really knew what the original story was until I read that and then saw the movie, because I was going to start this with that whole quote, knowledge is knowing that Frankenstein was not the monster, wisdom is knowing Frankenstein was the monster.
Mm,
Yeah.
that's a good
That's a
quote.
really good quote. That's really good.
Yeah, and really, I think a part of it was, I would say Victor's motivation is, I want to say it was noble, but it was also driven by hubris.
Totally.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
his excuse for all of the things that he does are, well, I'm going to cure everything. And then that scene where he wakes up and he's like being nursed by his friend, and he's like, what about the cholera outbreak? And he's like, oh, it's terrible, we can't do anything for him. He's like, yay, I failed. Like, what a horrible thing to say to hear so many people are sick and dying is thank God.
Did anybody watch this with the whole cholera subplot and feel like, wow, times really haven't changed since the 18th century?
I was going to say, that scene with Victor's mentor, and they're trying to give out vaccines, and
Yeah.
that one guy. Oh
Yeah.
God!
Yes. Oh
Oh,
my
listen.
god.
Speaking of
Listen.
that, I didn't realize that was John Cleese.
Let's give it up to John Cleese for
For
stepping
working
out,
those teeth.
Yeah,
out of that Monty Python shadow. Because good for him. I was glad to see him in something like this because
And
look, I've seen him in Faulty Towers. I've seen him in Monty Python.
and again, this is practically an all-star cast.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially if you like Harry Potter. There's
Oh.
Cornelius Fudge,
Practically everybody.
Yeah.
Practically
Bilbo
everybody.
Baggins. Hey, Bilbo Baggins is shirtless in this movie
Yes.
too, guys, when he's
Yes,
delivering
and
his
covered
son.
in blood.
This
Oh,
is
God.
necessary, though. He seems to be showing this for a reason. I don't know who's a bigger showgirl, Kenneth Branagh or that staircase with no railing that logically should have killed his entire
Yes.
But
built
Lindsay,
something.
it looks so cool. It's a spiral staircase.
That
It's
staircase
awesome.
is
So
a death trap.
modern and cool.
How did that? Oh, I know it's a beautiful stage piece, but like in a movie, you want to feel more immersed, and you're not as restricted as you are by like stage pieces. But Kenneth was like, no, me in the staircase, me with no shirt, and that staircase with no rail. I will not make this movie any other way. I don't know how that.
I think this was. I think that is Kenneth Branagh's stage experience talking with that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess we know his thirst traps, staircases, and him shirtless.
Yeah,
Yeah, just,
Violation
but
owned
but-
by.
Fred
but
Eagle.
can we talk about Robert De Niro's Monster? Because
Yes.
that was actually way better than I was expecting.
Of course, yeah.
Well, I mean, I know how good an actor that Robert De Niro is. I mean, but I think of him, I think of Goodfellas, I think of Godfather. Like,
Yeah,
I-
you don't think
No.
you don't think
But I-
this kind of sad
yeah, it was very much.
melancholy
He's a very actually,
sympathetic character. Yeah, you think tough guy.
yeah,
I
he's
think
not.
that mentality really went well with the monster because of how he approaches Frankenstein later, going, "You owe me."
Yeah,
He's like, you won't take this away from me after the fact that you brought me to life. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very.
You
owe
basically left me like a prom date baby left at the fire station.
God damn, man.
Don't you
Yeah.
feel for Robert De Niro?
Damn.
No.
I mean, that's what he did to the creature, right? He's like, "Oh no, you're hideous and ugly. I gotta get away from you."
Ah, pretty privileged.
Yeah,
Like, as soon as he does it, he's like, "Oh, I'm out.
He doesn't even,
Leave
like,
him on his own to learn how to live."
He doesn't even make any attempt to be like, oh no, I'm killing it on accident. I better stop it.
Yeah.
It's just like, well, back to the drawing board or not. I don't know.
God.
Oh, well, it died. I don't have
Yeah.
to confirm that at all. I'm just
Yeah,
gonna
like
leave
it was a
Yeah.
batch of sea monkeys. Just like, well, oops.
There's not going to be any consequences for my actions for this. Nobody holds me accountable.
Right. Yeah. Like,
Oh God, I was gonna say something really, really bad.
okay, listen.
Worse than prom
Listen.
baby.
Okay, it's like I don't have to hold accountability. I'm white.
Digging,
And rich.
Oh.
I'm blonde and blue-eyed and
digging up
beautiful.
bodies was common back then because
Doctors did do that.
yeah, doctors did that. Okay,
Or they
look,
paid
listen.
criminals.
They were renovating. They were renovating the basement of.
Oh.
Also, where did he find that huge attic space as an apartment?
They were renovating the basement of Benjamin Franklin, and they found all of those skeletons. Where
Hey, Benjamin Franklin was a freaky guy.
yeah, they
Oh,
were
God.
they talked about him buying because he wasn't far from a medical school, so the people with the most money could just buy bodies straight from executioners and people who were in charge of burials. They would turn around, either dig them up or
And if you
whatever
knew a guy
means.
who knew a guy, he'd just for you.
yeah. So it was very common back then. So I like the fact that he was like, we're just gonna go dig up these bodies and use all these parts because that was the thing. They had a whole underground market for that sort of thing. In the day was fresh bodies for medical students that wanted to prove something. They wanted the freshest of bodies of man, woman, and child.
Speaking
But
of
this, okay,
the episode of Lore. The episode of Lore where they're talking about that and how there were two serial killers that was in London, and that was what they did is they killed people and then sold the body.
Ah, okay.
Is that what the Burke and Hare movie is loosely about?
I'd have to look that up.
Andy Serkis and
Simon Pegg. It was originally
Simon
supposed to be
Pegg,
David
yeah.
Tennant and Simon Pegg, but Tennant dropped out.
uh,
I don't know if he didn't want to work with John Landis because it's one of those later John Landis movies.
I haven't seen that yet, so
I've
I know
never
of
seen
it, and I have it, but I have not seen it yet.
But it's kind of I don't even know what to say about like how digging up bodies was a common practice for the rich back then. Uh, Makes me kind of. I'm not sure if I want to know what some of the rich people get up to now.
Right?
Yeah.
I used to work hospitality. 2 words. Scat party.
Okay.
You see this? Do you see this? This is what I'm doing.
I used to work at the San Luis. It was a 5-diamond resort, and what they would do is they would hire prostitutes, take a lot of X-Lax, and just go to town.
Oh God, I can imagine the amount of bleach that
Oh,
is
God.
just needed.
I was the upholsterer. We're talking about the meme I posted about CNAs earlier, poo horror stories. That's one of them.
Okay, that is.
Oh. All right, so the ambiotic fluid seems not gross
Yes.
at all now.
No,
Yeah.
no, there are
That's-
way worse things that happen in real life.
lot
Humans
of
are
people-
horrible people.
Look, a lot of people are like, "Ooh, that's unnecessary," but no, that adds to the oogie factor to me.
That's
That
the gore that
Of
Frankenstein.
him
That's part of the
reanimating a corpse to life and messing with dead bodies.
he's
Yeah.
bringing life. The fact that he's okay. That scene where he first comes out of the tank, and he can't walk. He's like a newborn deer, baby deer.
But he's a
Yeah.
grown man.
He's
Oh.
flopping all over the place, and Kenneth Branagh's down there with him, trying to pick him up and help him up, and it's like he birthed this grown, grotesque monster, and he's helping it, trying to stand up on its own. And it may seem gross and oogie and slimy, but I thought that was one of the best scenes of the movie. It's like in the scene in Dracula where he stabs the cross and all the blood comes out.
Yeah,
He's being baptized in blood because
yeah.
he's despicable. He turns against God and he denounces Christ. So in Bram Stoker's Dracula, he's covered in this ambionic fluid, and it may seem gross, but to me it's kind of like a parallel scene because
These movies definitely felt like they were competing against each other. But I have to give it to Dracula. I'm sorry, Kenneth, but your abs were not enough to make this movie as scary and terrifying to me as Bram Stoker's Dracula.
I do prefer Bram Stoker's because of just
Mhm.
everything involved, and also apparently, not to go back to that movie, but apparently when Gary Oldman was freaking Winona Ryder out by how intense he was, and eventually I guess they didn't like each other while making, but I
Well-
guess it shows how good of an actor he is. He was that intense.
It wasn't that. He was actually emotionally abusive of her on the set.
Oh,
wow.
that's
So
terrible.
she had that repulsion. That's
Well, that's not cool.
I also think
separate
this is-
the art. Separate the art.
I think it's during the time that he was battling heroin or something like that.
Yeah.
I thought it was alcoholism.
Be around.
Why not both?
Probably. I mean, this is, Hollywood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, everybody was battling some kind of addiction, and in the reading,
Well-
they got along fine, but over the course of the movie, they seriously fell out with each other. But I think that chemistry kind of added to what I was saying about how, it was ultimately about her seduction and fall from grace.
Well,
She had that repulsion in her, so it wound up being that, it went down that way where she didn't want to go there, but she was pulled.
Yeah, I could
well, he
see.
crossed oceans of time to get to her.
Well, he said that one line is what made him want to take this role.
Yeah, he said that. That was a cool line. But I guess we know why
I'm sorry, that is a sexy line.
why
It
Kenneth
is.
Branagh and Helen Bonham Carter had so much chemistry, because it was
Yes.
real.
Yeah.
Going back to that amniotic scene. Fun fact, that slipping and sliding around wasn't acting. It was so slippery that Robert De Niro split his suit.
Oh, was that
God.
actually De Niro in the scene? Because I feel like De Niro would have been like, "I'm not doing that."
Yeah.
No, it was Kenneth Branagh and Robert De Niro in an anatomically correct suit.
Okay. Wow.
Oh,
Actually,
well,
funny thing, it's like they're just slipping and sliding around naked. But I just kind of want to talk about, it's like, this movie is a very tame R rating.
yeah.
Like,
It
like
is.
there's no foul, well, like, the worst foul language I've heard is, like, calling the creature a bastard.
Well, you get some Helena Bonham Carter movie in it, but
Not really. Not like
Yeah,
there's
not really.
like there is some skin, but really there all of the nudity is on the male side.
right.
It's
a bunch of
pretty much
rank.
Kenneth Branagh.
Yeah.
On purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah,
De
it's
Niro
not
rank.
like Dracula where the boobs are flying everywhere.
Yeah. The boobs are flowing as freely as the blood.
Yes, everybody loves a good set of boobs.
Yeah. But yeah, this is I was actually I was talking with the English teacher just today, and I suggested, hey, you actually probably could get away with showing this movie to your students because it's really there's the only thing that's really that you can tell it got its R rating from is the gore.
I mean, he
It was
does
the
rip
gore
her
and
heart
the full
out.
frontal
Yeah.
nudity.
Yeah.
Okay, but I have to tell a little story just because it makes me laugh even now. I paid for dual credit classes in high school, and my senior year of high school, our AP English teacher was arrested. And
Oh
the
yeah.
substitute for their class had been retired for a few years, and she was just kind of like, screw it. We're going to watch Frankenstein. We're going to watch Cats. Maybe you'll have a spelling test. I don't know. But I had like the easiest, college level English class. And one of the things I remember most was this movie and the fact that she showed us like the part where he rips her heart out and the amniotic fluid collection and the grosser parts. And I have college credit for watching that movie repeatedly.
That is
Okay.
Well, see, Kenneth Branagh gave you college credit
Yes.
and his
Actu-
abs.
Yeah.
And his abs.
the 24
Actually,
pack.
I do. Actually, I'm glad you mentioned that that scene, Lindsay, because I think this is probably one of the things that I think improves on the story. The scene after the monster rips out Elizabeth's heart, and in a even more madness that he had than before, he reanimates her. Victor reanimates her because that wasn't in the book.
No, nor was the reason he didn't want to create a bride for him, because in the movie it's the longtime housemaid, right?
Yeah.
But in the book it's a whole different reason why he wouldn't do it.
Yes.
Yeah, like I was saying, that Adam was so perfect and physically strong that he was afraid that Adam would get together with his bride. Well, actually, there were two reasons. The first one was rejection dysphoria. What if he builds this bride and she rejects him? And then second, what if they get together and make a master race of babies?
Oh
Oh
no.
God. Oh.
Right. Hitler Frankenstein.
Oh Lord, yeah, Frankenstein sounds like a worse dude in the
Honestly,
book than
that
he does
sounds
in the
like. Honestly, Hitler Frankenstein. That sounds like something that has probably been done.
No, that sounds like a Rob Zombie song.
But
Hitler Frankenstein, Hitler Frankenstein.
Yeah, that sounds like a Rob Zombie song.
But yeah, the scene where he reanimates Elizabeth and she realizes, that she's become a monster and just lights the entire house on fire.
Yeah.
Right? She's like,
The only
screw
practical,
this shit.
Yeah.
the only
The
practical
world's
person
over.
in the movie.
But I think that is a very big clue as to show that how Victor kind of sees how far he's gone.
If
Yeah.
I'd have been denied my wedding night for many years and then died a virgin, I'd have been mad too.
Okay.
Right? It's a
I
solid
don't want to
point.
burn something down. This shit.
Ugh.
But
Oh.
what do you like about this adaptation of this version, Rachel?
Oh my gosh, it's so pretty. It's one of my favorite movies because it's so pretty and it's aesthetic, and a lot of the various looks now have like a core name, and like royalty core and horror core come together really beautifully. And the baby is born in this, and it's such a sign of hope that not all is lost in this baby. And what is the first casualty Frankenstein's monster takes?
Yep.
The baby. He
Mhm.
takes the baby. It is perfect horror.
Yeah, and they have the balls to show that too.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
That's like
It does-
another parallel too between like Bram Stoker's Dracula, because one of the things that's supposed to horrify you about like the turning of Lucy into a vampire is that she's feeding from a child.
Mhm.
Oh yeah. That.
Yeah.
There is that.
Yeah, that kids were not sacred. And there was also that scene in Bram Stoker's where he hands the baby over to his bride.
To his brides, yeah, when
Yeah.
they're like,
Yeah.
what are we
And
going to eat if you're going to take the guy from us?
It's like, here's some fresh baby.
Have a baby.
but you know what?
Oh, well,
Again,
there's that metaphor right
It's like,
there where he's giving
tasty
a baby to his
veal.
bride.
again,
Mm,
again, props to Francis Ford Coppola for showing that. Like, because
Yeah.
I'm sure that was controversial. Like that, and when Lucy
It's
Comes-
Lucy.
comes down the stairwell in the crypt, and she's holding the toddler, and
Yeah.
she has a bloody mouth, like she's already been feeding on that toddler, but she drops it when they startle her, and she crawls back into the coffin.
Mm.
And I mean, again, props to him for showing that.
Yeah.
Because that is controversial to something like that. With
Well, yeah, what is it? You're not supposed to kill kids or the pets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this movie's like, no, both of them actually, yeah. But the thing I want to highlight before we finish is I do really like how touching the scenes are when the Frankenstein monster creature is like hiding out with that family. Well, he's not with them, but he's hiding out in their barn because he's kind of learning about humanity from this family.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like that one blind dude who is like nothing but kind to him.
Yeah.
That's another Kenneth Branagh staple, is that old man. He was in Much Ado About Nothing as the father.
Oh yeah, yeah. Also, I want to just give one more shout out to Mary Shelley herself, because
Mhm.
she was the one who got the ball rolling on what we know now as science fiction.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
100%.
I'll say this again. I mentioned it a couple of weeks ago, but it's kind of funny how genre and fandom is so misogynistic, and especially in the horror and sci-fi. Well, horror especially, two of our most groundbreaking novels that have influenced so many male writers were written by women. Mary Shelley's Frankenstein and Shirley
Exactly.
Jackson's The Haunting of Hill House.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually. And the whole horror and sci-fi genre is driven by women. I mean, that's where you get Scream Queens from. I mean, look at my Facebook banner sometimes, it's all the Scream Queens. But particularly, I want to point out Elvira and Vampirella.
Oh, yeah.
They're both horror MCs that, that's their main thing that they did is direct,
Elvira is some of my earliest
Same.
Memories.
childhood. Yeah,
Yeah.
like what
But-
turned me on to like wow, like what made me sexually aware, I guess. So not
Ah.
not to creep anyone out.
Boobs.
Like
Boobs.
again, like yeah, like wow, this woman is. There's something there. I don't know what it is just yet,
Elvira
but
did it to all of us.
yeah.
I don't know what I like about this person, but I do
yeah,
like her.
like
But one thing,
what do I say? Up all night. You know, sometimes she would host that, and I'd be like, "Ooh, Elvira." Like, I know
And,
what's going on there, but I like it, and I like it a lot.
And
So
it scares
it scares me a
great-
little bit. Yeah.
what's
So,
great about Elvira, and you don't really know this, is while she was coming up through there, doing the bit horror movies that she was buying up rights as she was doing
Yes.
it.
a boss.
So now
Ooh.
she not only is she beautiful, she's a fantastic businesswoman.
Okay,
Very,
Mhm.
very smart.
listen. Let me say this: there have been comparisons to, like, okay, Led Zeppelin, Jimmy Page, has been compared to the devil with his long black hair and his gnarly guitar.
Well,
riffs.
didn't
And-
he buy Aleister Crowley's house and
Yes, he did.
stuff?
And Robert Plant has been compared to an angel with his angelic voice. Now listen. I have a comparison.
Are you saying Kenneth Branagh is the blonde angel?
No,
I don't know where you're
Hang on.
going with this because the
Well-
dog won't quit barking.
Well, okay, listen. I'm trying to figure out where I'm going with this too.
And if the devil is 6, then God is 7.
Yeah, I forgot where I'm going. Listen, I probably had too much to drink, but anyway,
but
we'll leave it.
but yes, yeah, Mary
I'll
Shelley.
finish that thought. I'll remember it, and then I'll be like, okay, and
Just
Yeah.
post it as a status.
But
I'll post it. Yeah.
But yeah, Mary Shelley, well, also Lucille Ball, because she was one of the few
Oh yeah,
people
she
who,
produced
Yeah.
Star
Star
Trek
Trek.
and Mission Impossible.
yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
So a lot,
Women all over the genre.
yeah,
And we talked about this when we talked about Halloween. Part of Halloween's success is Deborah Hill as much as it is John Carpenter.
yeah. Also, the Terminator.
Gail Ann
producer-
Hurd, yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, James
Well, basically-
Cameron, you.
Okay.
Most of
Very
James
good,
Cameron, most of James
Yeah.
Cameron's career, he owes to Gail Ann Hurd.
What I
Oh,
was
he
gonna
wouldn't
say
have a
is,
career if it wasn't for Gail Ann Hurd.
Elvira is the same level as Dolly Parton as far as just being so fucking awesome. Like,
Yeah.
Well,
Well,
and iconography as well.
Yeah.
To me, when I think Elvira, I think Dolly Parton because she has, like,
So are you saying they're of the same coin of Robert Plant and Jimmy Page? Is
Yeah,
that where
like-
you were going? Okay,
like
I can
Dolly
see
Parton
that.
is conceived as the Robert Plant, just this angelic voice, just amazing, just iconic being, and then you've got the demonic side, which is, you have Elvira, and I can kind of compare her to Jimmy Page a little bit. I don't know. It just
I see what I see. Now I see where you're going at with
Yeah,
Chris.
yeah. I'm sorry. I'm again.
But the point is, let's start showing a lot of female creators more respect.
Yes, because they're the foundation of the genre and the characters a lot of times. So there really wouldn't be horror without women. So all you bros out there, show some respect.
Get over yourselves.
Yep.
Also, go to therapy.
Right. I just
Mhm.
watched Jamie Lee Curtis in The Fog, and man, again,
Oh, you got her and her mom in that movie because Janet
Yes.
Leigh's in
Yeah.
there.
such
Yeah.
a knockout.
All right. I think I think it's probably one of our most fun episodes yet.
Yes.
I had a
Rachel,
good time.
thank you
Well,
so
good.
much for coming on and talking both of these movies because, again, I mean, I love both of them, and it seems like you have a soft spot for them, and
Thank
I'm
you so
glad
much
you-
for inviting me. I had a really great time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would give out 2 recommendations to anyone out there if you want like skewed movies dealing with either one of these films we talked about, and that is Tim Burton's Ed Wood and Gods and Monsters, where Ian McKellen plays James Well, who directed Frankenstein and Bride of Frankenstein.
Mm.
Mm.
See, actually, I do need to watch the original Universal horror monster movies, like because I've
Well,
never
they're
seen them.
fun.
Yeah.
And Bride of Frankenstein actually features Mary Shelley, Lord Byron, and I don't remember what Mary Shelley's husband's name was. Of them
Oh,
talking
actually,
who's going
Percy Bissy. I don't even know how to pronounce this. Percy Shelley.
Anyways, like Rachel was talking about before we recorded about who could come up with the best ghost story. I think that's the little scene they have at the beginning of Bride of Frankenstein is
But
pretty
that's
much
how
that.
that book was created. Is
Yeah.
we're all just gonna go into our room and write a book and see who writes the best one. This
Yeah.
was life before TV and all that extra electrical stuff. This was the long winter.
Yeah.
She basically said, "Hold my beer," and you know, showed him up. So good
It's
for her.
like, all right, boys, let me show you how it's really done.
You
Yeah,
want
Yeah.
horror? I'll show you horror.
I will
Oh,
scare
yeah.
the shit out of you. You want to see it? I will scare the shit out of you. She did it.
Let's write a book from the perspective of somebody who lives in a world where half the population is entitled to do harm to you.
Yeah. Also, I kind of want to know what, like, I kind of looked at the TV tropes page for Frankenstein as a franchise, and there are more than a couple of movies that I like to see,
Well,
including,
Christopher Lee also played the creature.
yeah,
Mhm.
like,
Yeah.
oh, Frankenstein Conquers the World. It says a Toho film where the monster's immortal heart makes its way to Japan, and after exposure to the Hiroshima blast, leads to a new giant-sized Frankenstein who fights a giant fire-breathing lizard named Baragon.
Okay, I gotta watch this now.
Yeah, that looks amazing. That
I
sounds
kind of want to
amazing.
see. I kind of want to see a giant Frankenstein versus Godzilla now.
Yeah, or the erotic rites of Frankenstein, in which Frankenstein's daughter Vera and his arch rival, the immortal sorcerer Cagliostro, vie for control of his monster after his death.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah, there are a lot of Frankenstein, it's like Frankenstein adaptations out there, and they just get crazy. Of course, the
Wow.
Universal horror films, Son of Frankenstein, The Ghost of Frankenstein, Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman, House of Frankenstein, House of Dracula, Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein.
Actually, the Son of Frankenstein is basically what Mel Brooks takes for the plot of Young Frankenstein.
Oh yeah, there's Young Frankenstein, or Frankenstein.
Frankenstein.
Yeah.
Well, Rachel, thank you so much for joining us and coming on and discussing these two movies. Cody, do we have anything lined up for this weekend? Do we want to do anything this weekend?
Well, I was gonna ask Chris, did we want this to be our final spooky season episode of the year, or did you want to try and squeeze one more in, maybe Sunday or Monday?
Let's do one Sunday night.
Okay. What do you want to do?
I have no idea. I will get with you behind the scenes, and we'll plan it out, and we'll go from there. But I do want to do one more show. Like it's the last spooky season of the year, and I want to do something. So
What about Carrie?
Oh,
Ooh.
I mean, that's a classic.
Are we talking about the one with Sissy Spacek, or the...
That's the point. There's multiple ones we can talk about.
I say
Well, we could do the Sissy Spacek one and just talk about how on earth did they get away with making that movie?
Well,
and its
how about we
opening
do? Would y'all be up for Carrie and Christine?
A Stephen King double feature.
I am down. I am
Hey,
I
down.
Sounds
see.
lovely.
I'm down with that. I would
Wait, what
also
do you think?
maybe instead of
Do you want to come back and guess for that? Is that what you're saying, hinting at, or like what do you would you be interested?
If you'll have me, I had a great time, and it'd be fun to talk about these movies next.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
I
so
have read both the books and I have seen both the movies, so
okay.
I
Excellent.
definitely have a lot to say about them.
Well, we'll watch Carrie. We just recently watched. I'm sorry, guys. We just recently watched Christine, which I absolutely love, and well, yeah, I'm down for it.
Yeah. Oh, before we go, I just want to throw this out there. There is a upcoming Frankenstein adaptation by Guillermo del Toro with Doug Jones as the monster.
oh my god,
Yeah.
that's gonna be amazing.
Nice.
Is that what he's doing after Pinocchio? Is he directing it?
I don't know if he's directing it, but I kind of hope he does because a lot of his movies tend to be about more than just the, what's going on at hand. So I am really looking forward to seeing what he does with this.
You guys should watch his Netflix series, especially if you're a Lovecraft fan. They're very Lovecraftian, and he gets to be like Rod Serling or Alfred Hitchcock.
Okay.
Nice.
They're dropping 2 episodes a day. It's called Cabinet of Curiosities.
Ooh, I was looking at that this morning, actually.
Nice. Yeah, I'll have to check that out. Well,
Yeah, I recommend it.
okay. Well, great. So, y'all want to meet back around the same time on Sunday, and we'll talk Carrie and Christine.
I'm down.
Okay.
Sounds
All
great.
right, it's a Stephen King double feature. And
Yes, I'm
And
excited.
what's
if
horror-
you guys
what-
know Brian De Palma's filmography, God, is that man horny?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Back in the days, most filmmakers were.
Thank you so much again for joining us, and Rachel. And again, we'll look forward to Sunday, and we'll talk those 2 movies. Sorry, guys.
Sounds great.
Something-
Yeah.
Super excited.
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. All right, guys.
Me too.
Well, thanks again. And if you listen, if you're one of our tens of listeners, thank you so much. And my dog has something to say, but anyway. All right, guys. Well,
Hello,
thanks
puppy.
again. I will see you
She
guys.
read the book. She's got thoughts.
Yeah.
Yes, she does. Well, I'll see you guys Sunday, and we'll get one more Halloween bash in.
All right.
All right.
Awesome.
Right. Bye.
Bye.
Bye bye, everybody.